How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And today, join me for my overview of the Adam Strange Between Two Worlds Deluxe Edition hardcover from DC Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So here we have the latest deluxe edition from DC Comics, and it's one that really surprises me that they actually did. This is Adam Strange Between Two Worlds, and the contents of this deluxe edition are just so different from one story to another, and I'll explain why in a little bit and without going into spoilers. But let's look at this cover here. This is a cover by Andy Kubert. I believe it might have been recolored here because the original colors were done by Adam Kubert, if I'm not mistaken, his brother. There we go, Adam Strange Between Two Worlds, the deluxe edition, DC logo down there. And then I believe that is a piece by Pasquale Ferry, Discover the Man Behind the Myth in the Strange Adventures Across the Stars. The retail price of this is $49.99. And let me see if there's a rating, because the rating for the original 3-issue or the prestige format 3-issue Adam Strange Man of Two Worlds, that one was about teen plus because of, well, there was violence and then some content in there that can be considered adult content. But let's look at it underneath the dust jacket, and there's another piece right there. But here's what that piece looks like. And again, the spine Adam Strange Between Two Worlds, the deluxe edition. Now, the stories collected in here have been previously collected in a couple of trade paperbacks. The first one being The Man of Two Worlds right here. It's been long out of print. And then Planet Heist. The Justice League Tower of Babel deluxe edition also contains 2 of the other stories that are collected in here. And I'm going to be talking about these mainly and then going over the book. So yes, I will be going over the stories collected in here without going too much into spoilers. But keep in mind, even if you're not going to watch that part of the video, that the first story, The Man of Two Worlds, by the time the Justice League issues come out, some of it has already been retconned. And then by the time the Planet Heist story comes out, most of it has been retconned. So, like I said, it's a very interesting collection. One happening in 1990, then the other one happening about late 90s, and then the other one about 2003, when that Planet Heist story was written. But let's go ahead and open this up and check out the artwork and, of course, look at the content. Alright, so let's go ahead and crack this open. And here is the intergalactic, maybe roadmap to Ran, which is the planet where our character, Adam Strange, will be going to. So this collects Adam Strange, the story that was called The Man of Two Worlds, issues 1 through 3. That's the one that came out in 1990. And that's the one that was written by Richard Brunning and drawn by Andy Kubert. And his brother, Adam, did the colors, which was a really nice touch. And then we also have the JLA 20 and 21 that was written by, actually it tells you right here, Mark Waid, and I mentioned that that's already collected in the Tower of Babel. And then your artist is Arnie Jorgensen, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. And then the last book in here is the Andy Diggle story, Planet Heist, drawn by Pasquale Ferry, and that one was written in 2004. So there's a little bit of years in between here. Here's an introduction from the writer Richard Brunning, talking about his stories and why he decided to change a lot of the things that he loved about Adam Strange. And then there's a dedication here to Gardner Fox, Carmine Infantino, Mike Sawowski, Murphy Anderson, and Julius Schwartz. So it's interesting to go back and read this because it's a dedication to those classic stories from the 50s. So just a little bit of history in case you're not familiar with the character of Adam Strange, because, well, he was such an obscure character in the 90s. Like, I don't remember really reading anything about him until I read the 3-issue miniseries. So for those of you that don't know, he was a character that appeared in the late 50s, and he was created by those gentlemen, mainly Murphy Anderson and Julius Schwartz, coming together because they loved the idea of these pulp heroes, kind of like Flash Gordon or John Carter of Mars, or even, I guess, a little bit of maybe Doc Savage in there. But he is an archaeologist from the planet Earth who was, shout out to Peru because there were Incas that were following him, who was being chased in an Indiana Jones style by a bunch of Incans, and he jumps off of this waterfall and he gets transported by the Zeta beam to the planet Ran. Now in Ran, he ends up falling in love with this lady named Alana, and there he makes friends with all of the people of Ran, including Zardath, who's the gentleman that is in pretty much at fault for bringing him over, because the Zeta beams were supposed to be communication beams and weren't supposed to transport any kind of particles over or any kind of human beings over. So that's kind of the reason why he's here, but he also happens to be the father of Alana. So Adam falls in love with Alana through those early stories, and they're kind of those adventure stories that end by the end of the issue because he gets transported back, because you find out that the Zeta beam is only working temporarily and he has to come back to Earth. Now, luckily for him, Zardath gave him the coordinates of where the next Zeta beam is going to be, so all he has to do is travel to that location on Earth, and there he goes back to Ran and to be in love with Alana. Now, those were your stories in the 50s, and I'm downplaying it a lot because there's a lot of those stories in here. There's Gardner Fox telling a lot of those stories, and it's got some beautiful artwork in there by Carmine Infantino. It was just one of those Silver Age Omnis that I used to have that I ended up selling because it was just, the Silver Age was not for me. And I know I've said that before on my channel, but there are plenty of people that love it, so I would definitely suggest seeking out those stories if you like those kind of tales. This here is a lot different. This is kind of what DC was starting to do in the 90s. And that is to take characters, or actually late 80s with Batman Year One and Dark Knight Returns, and of course Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. As a matter of fact, this is probably more the fault of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing than anything, because Bruning had a friendship with Alan Moore, and he liked the idea of maturing these characters and making them edgier. So he took this simple poppy character from the 50s and threw him into this more down-to-earth, realistic, sad type of story. So the stories that you read in here at the beginning, it's kind of a dark turn on what had previously happened. I remember working at the comic book store and talking to people about this, especially the older people that would pick up the Silver Age single issues of Adam Strange when we had them come in, and they were appalled by this. They thought that this was a smack to the face to comic book fans of the character of Adam Strange, because it was nothing like Adam Strange. They changed a lot of the characters. They changed the relationship between Adam Strange and Zardoz, and then they changed also how the people of Ran felt about Adam Strange. And you'll see in here that there's a sense of almost xenophobia when it comes to people in Ran and how they feel towards Adam Strange, whereas in the past they kind of viewed him as a hero. Now, in this particular story, Adam Strange is ready to go and live his life in Ran. He wants to go just stay there, and Zardath has figured out a way of how to do that. However, things don't go as planned. Not only that, but he also has a child, an unborn child with Alana that is coming. So he wants to stay there. He wants to raise this child with Alana. But my goodness, does this turn into a huge soap opera and tragedy? Like, everything goes through this modern lens. And it does have ties to that story from Alan Moore and Swamp Thing, where they kind of change up the storyline of why the people of Ran needed Adam Strange and what he was to them. He takes that and kind of runs with it. It's kind of a dark story in here. And you're not going to like a lot of his supporting cast. And there's a lot of supporting cast that show up through these pages. So much so that it felt like this was going to be an ongoing series instead of a 3-issue prestige format. Felt like this was going to be an ongoing series because it sets up so many new characters. And then towards the end, Bruning just kind of drops them. I will say the artwork here is phenomenal by Andy Kubert and his brother Adam Kubert. It kind of feels like a Joe Kubert piece of artwork from time to time. Like maybe some of those maybe they were, maybe just maybe they were channeling their dad's Tarzan stories. That's kind of what it felt like when reading this. This was the first thing that I ever read about Adam Strange because I wasn't familiar with the character. And when these issues were coming out in 1990, I picked up the 3-issue. They were like, they were like they weren't hardcovers, but they were soft covers, but they weren't like single issue comic book covers. The covers felt like this, like in the prestige format. And I thought it was a cool story. But it wasn't until years later that I found out that the story was so different than what his Silver Age predecessor was. But then again, if this is the 90s, then... Here, let's go on to the next story. Then, of course, they had to update the origins, just like they updated everything. Now, we fast forward some years, and we're at Justice League, or JLA as it was known, 20 and 21. Now, this is a different type of story that features the character of Adam Strange. As a matter of fact, Adam Strange at first plays a villain that is kidnapping the Justice League for him to manipulate and use to his will. Now, later on, you get to find out, of course, there's a little bit of a twist. I actually like the ending of this, but if you read the ending of this and you had just finished reading the 3-issue miniseries by Bruning, you're going to be confused, but just keep in mind that things got retconned. There were some aspects of Bruning's 3-issue miniseries that stayed, but a lot of it was retconned. And then we get to Planet Heist. And Planet Heist is a very interesting story because this serves kind of a lead up to the Rann-Thanagar War, which also works as a lead up to Infinite Crisis. So here he is again, and Adam Strange, the guy with the fin helmet, the jetpack, the guy that can travel back to Rann because of the Zeta beams. And we hadn't seen him for a while, and he shows up in this particular story. And in this 8-issue miniseries, it kind of works like a mystery. He's more on Earth, and he's remembering his past on Rann. And what's happening is that when the Zeta beam hits, or when it's supposed to come, it never comes, and he finds out that the planet of Rann has just blown up. It has been destroyed by a supernova star, and he is just wrecked because he has left his life up there. Because he does have a life. He has a loved one, and he has family up there. So he wanted to come back to Earth one last time to say goodbye to everybody, to kind of sell his stuff. He doesn't need it because he's going to go stay in Rann. They figured out a way that he would stay there. But he found out that the planet blew up. So the rest of it is a mystery because a bunch of bounty hunters come looking for him, and they're like, all right, where's Rann? We know it's not blown up. We know that it's somewhere out there hidden. And we know that you know something. So obviously, Adam Strange is left to think, okay, if the bounty hunters are down here looking for me because they think I had something to do with the disappearance of Rann, then the planet is still out there somewhere. So there's hope. So that's what this series is. Like, the first 2 issues take place on Earth, and then we get into a cosmic adventure that features not only Adam Strange, but also characters like the Omega Men and the Dark Stars, which always is nice to me when they show up. And this is what the artwork looks like. This is by Pasquale Ferry. And one thing you're going to notice is the colors, which is usually the colors that go with his artwork. And if you're familiar with him because of the pages of the Black Bolt comic, this is the same kind of art style that he has, and he's had for a while, and he's definitely one of those that is dividing people. Some people love it, some people are like, the colors are just too muted, I'm not a fan of it, but I think it works for this particular story. But that is basically it, and this, like I said, leads into the Rann-Thanagar War. The last page of this is kind of a cliffhanger to say the story will continue in the Rann-Thanagar War. Does the story wrap up in here? Like the mystery of where Rann went? Is he reunited with his family? I will say it does wrap up enough that you don't need to read the Rann-Thanagar War, but you should because it's such a freaking awesome story that leads into Infinite Crisis. And then, of course, there's the Rann-Thanagar one-shot. And, of course, Thanagar, if you're not familiar with that name, means the Hawk people like Hawkman and Hawkgirl. So that's kind of what that particular miniseries is about. Now, as far as the extras, you get a little bit of character designs right here. That's the Andy Kubert stuff. And the Fall of Adam Strange. And that's what that 3-issue miniseries really feels like you're reading. Guess they must have changed the name to the Man of Two Worlds instead of the Fall. And here's the handbook right there. All artwork by Andy. And cover sketches. So this is mainly just behind the scenes of the Man of Two Worlds. And again, that was collected in this trade paperback. You did have those sketches that are collected back here. I'm surprised it doesn't have anything from the Planet Heist, because the trade paperback of Planet Heist had some sketches by Pascal Ferry. Not a lot, but some. Now, the book here, this is a deluxe edition, let's look at it. Has 408 pages and it is glued binding. So it's like the Batman Deluxe Edition volumes 5 and 6. It's like the deluxe edition of Doom Patrol. And even the paper stock that they're using is this matte paper. Kind of reminds me of the paper stock that they used here. Let's look at it with here. The paper stock that they use for this. Although this does have a glossier finish to it. And let's compare to see what the artwork looks like. Right here. And again, the colors supplied by Adam Kubert. I love when both brothers work together, whether it's inks, but I don't really see a lot of colors by the Adam. And they're a little bit darker than they are here. Seems like the art's just a little bit lighter, but that could be the age of this trade paperback. It's an old trade paperback. But I did want to compare that, basically because they're using different paper stock. This has a slicker finish to it, but you can tell it's still matte paper. Not really semi-gloss. Now, something I wanted to compare were the colors here in this issue. Because I noticed when I was rereading it that the scan for a couple of pages seemed like there were some bad scans. So you can tell the color. They're a lot smoother here in the trade paperback. I don't know why they didn't just use the same file. But you can notice here on the pillows, you can see the actual patterns on the pillows, whereas here it's kind of hard to tell because you have those dots, right? Because of the color scans, the way they scan through. And it's not on every page here. It's more noticeable on some pages. You can barely tell that they're there. But yeah, for some reason the colors or the scans on this trade paperback looked a little bit smoother. And just a couple more pages of comparison here. Still, an interesting collection because I don't know if there's plans to bring back Adam Strange or why they brought it back. I forgot to show the flaps, but here they are. A nice piece by Andy. And then the bios right there on just Richard Bruning and Andy Kubert, no one else. Yeah, so I'm not sure why they decided to make this. I'm glad they did because the trade paperback for The Man of Two Worlds has been out of print for a long time. So, in case you have the Infinite Crisis Omnibus, this Planet Heist story that's collected in here leads directly into that story. So, in case you want to start reading Adam Strange in chronological order. But if you want to read the more simpler times, the real appearance of Adam Strange, I suggest maybe finding the archives or the Silver Age Omnibus that came out. There's only one, I believe. It was the only one I had, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the contents, the page count, and build of this deluxe edition. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you've never read a single Adam Strange comic, what you think about the Adam Strange comic here, Man of Two Worlds, in case you have read it before in the past and you're a big fan of this Silver Age Adam Strange comics. But if you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.